I'm plugged into the Agorist Nexus. We need the whole community connected. We're the alternative collective. Self-sufficient and effective. Pull the rug from effective. Each one teach one. Self-sufficient do effective. Free knots.
Hey guys, the Agorist Nexus podcast. Agorist here. I'm joined by the always magnificent Jeremiah Harding. How you doing today, man?
Reasonable. You?
Pretty good, dude. Pretty good. Had a good weekend. Went up to Georgia, smuggled a goat back down. You know, farmer Agorist shit. So, but yeah, man, doing all right. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, the fact that you can smuggle a goat, is really all the evidence people need. That there's some sort of overreach, because like the state can't even let us do normal like agriculture or husbandry or something like that without fucking, you know, breathing down the necks of the collective public. And, you know, apart from the fact that animal husbandry has always been a very weird way to say it for me. Like, yeah, like, oh yeah, you got a special kind of relation. Never mind. But like the fact that they're so involved that you can't do what everybody else had done for millennia, like it's like when you know, people wonder how we would do X, Y, and Z without fucking certain aspects of government. Like, you know, how would we do transportation security without the TSA? Well, they don't actually do that. They don't give you any security. The TSA is like a lie in the name, and they actually make people less secure by highlighting all of the gaps in security instead of just having a security team that knows them and can stop terrorism. Like they've never stopped an incident of terrorism. It's always been like an air marshal or something. But you know, the state has to regulate everything, even though they don't help. There was this, I forget who it was specifically. His raw milk farm was about to get raided, and the cops came there, and his lawyer had advised him to lock the doors and stay outside of the establishment until they gave up, because they couldn't open the doors, and he wasn't legally obligated by the warrant, by the text of the warrant, to open the doors or unlock anything. So you could just sit there and not say anything, regardless of you know, what they said, and he could just walk. And so but the point is that like they were raiding his raw milk farm to begin with, or like at least like coming up to have like a civil search warrant to make sure that it met standards or whatever. But it was totally unnecessary and extremely, like, you know, protection payee. Like, you didn't do exactly what we wanted, so we're coming around. And he just sort of sat there and calmly resisted. And I think that's a model of resistance in some areas. I'm not sure it works in all of them.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it's just like, well, realistically, what option do you have when they come to your door? You know, if you're not trying to die or really go to prison for a long time, you know, but you can at least not hurt yourself any worse by talking. You know, that's usually about the worst thing you can do. So it's like, hey, do what you got to do. I'm not saying nothing, you know. And then, I mean, I hate to say, hopefully sue them afterwards, because that's always a nightmare. There's just like there's a few cases where people have successfully done that, which is always great. I'm always great to see, but they almost always have backing from the Institute of Justice, I believe it's called, or Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, which, if there is, they specialize in raw milk, but I was a member and they gave me some help when I was having legal issues with my local county. But Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund, free plug, I guess, you like, basically you're like a member, and they provide you with legal services far beyond, you know, what you'd be able to afford otherwise if you come into an issue selling your raw milk or what have you. They actually gave, you know, I'll see if I can find the link. There might be a link to it, but I can't promise that. But they actually sent me a book of like how to handle how to handle the situation if like the feds come knocking at your door over an agricultural issue. Here's a checklist of here's whose names you get, here's the paperwork you ask for, here's what you're legally obligated to provide them, here's what you're not, here's how to handle that, here's all the stuff your lawyer would want you to do in this situation. And it's kind of like a checklist. So there really is some good info out there, but it's unfortunate that we have to have an insurance service for this. But I mean, I guess it's the Agorist solution. So, whatever. But yeah, pretty neat.
Can you think of any of these lawsuit cases? Because that'd be an interesting topic there.
Yeah, so there's been a few. There's actually a recent one with the Amish, but one of the more famous ones that I was real familiar with, it was in Florida. I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's like the O'Cheesy Creamery, and they were tied up for years in a labeling issue for their milk. Basically, they were selling, like pasture raised skim milk. So skim milk, if you don't know, is whole milk where they skim some of the fat off the top, so it's leaner. Well, legally, to call a product milk, you then have to add vitamin A and vitamin D back into, like, synthetic vitamin A and D back into the milk, or it's not legally considered milk. So the state ended up having to pay like $1 million in legal fees and everything, and lost after like this 5-year battle. But it was the ins and outs. We could do an episode about it, man. The ins and outs of it are pretty interesting. It's pretty hilarious. Some of the compromises they tried to come to. It's a case, that's for sure.
And in terms of hilarity, I mean, they fucking allow almond milk to be called milk and all that shit. So like, no, like if it's okay to call something milk because they blended some nut fruit and like added some ethanol to extract the fucking things from it, then maybe we should be like more understanding that milk isn't a specific thing and only that. Like, but no, the state is evil and just a gang of thieves, so they don't care. They're not gonna be rational.
One of the like suggestions was like, well, why don't we call it milk-like product from the state? And I'm like, but that's terrible because that's not what it is. So what if you're vegan and you see milk-like product? Oh, cool, I can add this to my coffee. It's just it really defeats the purpose of the labeling. So yeah, it's just silly. Another funny agricultural thing that we had around here recently, I'm not sure if it's still going on, but we had these like giant, I think it was the giant African snails in one county over on the Gulf Coast. And they had an agricultural lockdown on that county. Like, you're not allowed to transport brush or trees or plants or anything in or out of the county right now. They bring like dogs around to hunt for the snails and stuff. It's kind of, I mean, the snails probably suck. Like, I'm not saying that, the snails are good or whatever, but it's just the lockdown term is funny for that, I guess.
Yeah, well, and the real insane thing is that, like, I forget who it was specifically right now, but I used to watch a YouTube channel where this guy would just go through checkpoints and prove that like you don't have a legal obligation to answer questions. And one of the things that happened was he went through a checkpoint with this frankly insane sort of Gestapo mentality about the things that were allowed in and out of the state. And because he wouldn't answer any questions, despite the fact that he was being pretty reasonable and had his family in the car, despite all that, they still smashed in his window and drug him out of the car and arrested him. And he wasn't doing anything unethical. He was just driving into a place, And I might think these guys were, and I shouldn't have even said irrational, because it's not irrational. It's perfectly rational from the perspective of thugs who want control over a territory. But it's not rational from the perspective of, actually helping people. If they actually, like, I might believe they might want to help people if they stopped poisoning so much. Like, oh yeah, we definitely care about the local crops and water supply and all that shit, but like we're not gonna shut down Red Hill very quickly. Are you familiar with that?
Is that one of the Superfund sites?
No, Red Hill is part of a military base
Mm.
where in Hawaii, where they had a fuel tank for their machines leaking, and it was just sort of leaching into not only the groundwater but also the local like water supplies in
Mm.
terms of like because it's an island, you know, you have
Camp
very
Lejeune,
limited.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they had this thing and it was just leaking for a long time, and instead of shutting it down they were like, well, we still need fuel. No, you don't. And you wouldn't need as much fuel if you allowed domestic oil drilling. You wouldn't need as much fuel if you know, if you weren't sanctioning one and admittedly evil government. I'm not saying Russia's fantastic. Fuck that fascist government too, but like ultimately, like sanctioning them and then going to Saudi Arabia for oil isn't a great look. And it's certainly not helping anybody's conception of US like priorities. But like they wouldn't have to do that if they weren't doing that sort of thing. And then they don't have to have this site. It's just convenient to have this site. So like they're saying it's for, like strategic reasons. It's the same reason Pearl Harbor was chosen. And you know, the reason the US invaded Hawaii to begin with, because Hawaii was basically annexed by the US. And like US troops went in there to instate a certain ruler. And there was some resistance to that temporarily, but that resistance was crushed by the US government, who sent in literal troops to control this territory. And now the actual native population gets basically none of the resources, and the entire place has been turned into an anti-sacred consumerist garbage heap. And all of this stuff is happening at the same time as, you know, the US is slowly building its sort of resources in that region, using it as one big sugar mine. And you know, like the whole thing there, it's basically just a really good example of, you know, Western imperialism creating a global plantation. And so when Red Hill isn't being shut down, even though it's actively poisoning people because it's good for the military, and when they're not cleaning it up because they can't, you know, just get rid of all that stuff or, you know, justify the expenses, but when they can send, you know, 60 billion worth of military stuff to Ukraine, that really shows where their priorities are. When they can get 5 billion in weapons sold to Saudi Arabia, but they can't, you know, afford a small amount of money to shut down an active toxin site and stop it from killing people. That really shows where their priorities are, you know?
Mhm.
Like even just so the other day, I actually, was just yesterday. I shouldn't say the other day. I guess it qualifies as another day, but
I
basically
could sell that.
yeah, right. Uh I posted this thing. If I were president and couldn't just give it back, here's how I'd spend the 60 billion the US gave to Ukraine. 20 billion to solve annual homelessness, because that's all it would take. End the war on drugs and give 10 billion to reintegration. 300 million to end annual student meal debt. 700 million to feeding America for, and by the way, that's the thing. Students are in debt. Kids, like children, are in debt because their families can't afford to feed them and they have to rely on school food. And so the school charges for that food, and some of these kids can't afford it. So instead of doing the decent thing and saying we'll just appropriate more funds or we'll make it cheaper, the school said, you can be in debt to us, Tim. You can be in debt to us, Timmy and Chrissy. Just be in debt to us. That's evil. 700 million to Feeding America, which is a charity that makes meals for people like at really cheap rates because of their connections. 700 million to Feeding America for 7 billion meals. That's how many meals they could make for $700 million. And that's just a sliver of this. 10 billion to be spent on the crumbling U.S. infrastructure, because how many of you have thought about how much U.S. spends overseas when you hit potholes? 5 billion spent for giving PPP loans for the smallest businesses. 5 billion on cleaning Red Hill, Flint, and Midland water. And then I asked people, what's your hashtag Ukraine dream budget? But it didn't catch on. Point is that like they could do so much domestically with that, but they're spending it on Ukraine because Ukraine is their new darling boy, and they don't care about conditions on the ground or whether or not people are unhealthy and killing themselves at all-time highs.
Yeah, the school food one really gets me, man. That's it's just such crap food, and it's such a cronyist program. I think it's like Dick Cheney's family owns like a lot of the companies that provide school food. I think in Florida, I think that's the case, or at least it used to be. So it's hugely cronyist. And I see things like they like to brag about it. So like there was a billboard by me, and it was just advertising the fact that during the summer, the school still provides, meals to people. And, it's like, oh, look how nice they are by helping the poor. And it's like, no, that's just so that their fucking food vendors don't have to miss a paycheck during the summertime when the kids aren't in school. That's what that is. That's not a thing that's meant to help children. That's a thing that's meant to keep their pockets lined. It's just gross,
Yeah. Well, and so in that spirit of what the U.S. is doing for Ukraine that it won't do for U.S. citizens, let's talk about the Warrior Games, which is a Department of Defense shindig, where it's like
their company Olympics or something.
Yeah. So it's, first off, it's all of them. It's even the Space Force has participants in this thing. So you've got, in terms of official U.S. government people, you've got the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, and Special Ops Command, and the Department of Defense in general. You've got like assistance from multiple governments, and the like. You've got like Wounded Warrior and ARCP, and like you've got Fisher House and ESPN and Disney. And so they basically gave whoever participated in this sort of Olympics for ex-troops, I think it is. I'm not sure if it's like normal troops, or if it's people who are all wounded. But basically, they bring people on from a variety of countries, and then they say, do some sports, and then they do some sports, and they had people in this year from Ukraine who were just Nazis. Like, it's fairly astonishing that this isn't more opposed, but yeah. So this is from the Gray Zone. Alexander Rubinstein. The Defense Department sponsored Warrior Games featured liberal comedian Jon Stewart, a Jew, awarding a member, and that was my aside, by the way. They didn't say that. I just thought I'd mention that. Awarding a member of Ukraine's neo-Nazi Azov battalion at Disney World. The Pentagon refused to tell the Gray Zone whether U.S. taxpayers funded the foreign competitors' travel. This August, during the DoD's annual Warrior Games at Disney World in Orlando. This August 19th to 28th, liberal comedian Jon Stewart awarded a Ukrainian military veteran named Ihor Halushka the Heart of the Team Award. The heart of the team. Keep that in mind, for inspiring his team with his personal example. Halushka appears to have been a member of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion, which has been armed by the U.S. and integrated into the Ukrainian National Guard. The award-winning ultra-nationalist wore a sleeve over his left arm, and it was like a flag cape. He had the Ukrainian flag as a cape on him, like a superhero. And he he wore a sleeve over his left arm as he accepted the prize, presumably to cover up his tattoo of the Nazi Sonnenrad, or Black Sun. And there's a picture of him. And by the way, we will have all of this information available in an article that I will write, which will basically be a summary of what we talked about today. So y'all can feel free to go to the site. That'll be a new feature when Dag and I do an episode, and I'll also be trying to do it when I'm doing an episode, because we want to be able to reach as many people as possible. So if you just need a source list to throw at somebody to say, hey, watch this podcast, these guys are good at this and they know their shit, you can just throw this at people and like say, hey, yeah, so these are the notes for the podcast. And yeah, they have sources. And the article will include this image and a link to the Gray Zone article, because you can see it. It's right there. So for anybody who says that the Ukrainians don't have Nazis in their ranks, or that they're not like Nazis anymore, no. He wouldn't have needed to cover it up if it wasn't there, and nobody gets a giant Sonnenrad on their elbow if they're not a Nazi.
So do you think that this is like a strategic thing because Jon Stewart is Jewish, that they, to sort of maybe to try to dispel the Azov battalion being Nazis thing? Do you think it's like the optics like that, or?
I don't think that mattered to them. I think they just needed him to be liberal enough.
A celebrity enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so did you hear? I guess Russia banned from Russia a bunch of the celebrities who went to Ukraine, like Ben Stiller and Sean Penn. I guess they like banned all of them. People, it's like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense though.
Yeah.
But it is crazy, all the celebrities that like go over there for fucking what,
Well, and for clout. It's nothing but like, give me a drip of clout, daddy. Yeah, I need money. Give me more money. And
do you think it's more of a clout thing on their part, or more of like a general propaganda thing on the,
on the Ukrainians' part, it's definitely propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
On the celebrities' part, it's 100% clout.
It's just
they don't
win-win,
care.
Man. Yeah.
Like, they're doing it. Like, you think Ben Stiller has like a deep rooted, complex, nuanced interest in global geopolitics? No, he doesn't. He Night at the Museum was his like exposure to political science, and he thought Theodore Roosevelt was great. Theodore Roosevelt was a bigot, and he was a terrible person. But oh no, he rode a horse and he was played by Robin Williams. So that means that we can ignore all the stuff he said and did. No. So yeah, like, and also he was like, so Jon Stewart was one of them, but also Disney literally sponsored it and gave them a resort vacation at Disney World. And so, and it wasn't just Ihor Halushka, but it's funny that the heart of the team, right, who inspired his team with his personal example, had to use the Ukrainian flag of blue and yellow to cover up his Nazism. I feel like that's actually accurate. Isn't it? Isn't it accurate?
Yeah. It's almost poetic or something.
And it's not just him either, like the rest of the team. So the pair are a part of a team of 40 Ukrainian veterans participating in the Warrior Games. By the way,
what do they have a game like that? They're like, does he have a specialty like the shot put or something?
I don't know or care. but like probably. Like, hey, maybe that's why he's crippled. He just shot putted too many times and he was too good at it and he threw out his elbow once. I was a shot putter like you and I took an arrow to the elbow. Don't look at it too closely though. Yeah, so basic like I wanted to make sure that it's known that the VA, the Veterans Affairs Office in Ukraine, is literally led by a former Azov guy. And the VA is absolutely infested with Azov and connected to right sector and C-14 and Svoboda people, which isn't it hilarious that the Freedom Party, that's what Svoboda means. The Freedom Party in Ukraine is literally just Nazis. I think that's funny. I think it's funny that the closest they can get to freedom is, we'll just land on Nazis. We'll be fine. Anyway, point is that they were joined at the ceremony for this year's competition by Darius Rucker, the former vocalist for the glorified bar band Hootie and the Blowfish. I don't agree with that. They're fine. But liberal comedian Jon Stewart. During the closing ceremony, Stewart awarded the Azov Battalion's Halishka with the Heart of the Team Award. Inspires the team with his personal example and his unique sense of humor, embodies the spirit and determination that is the heart of the Team Ukraine. One moment. Reached by phone, Warrior Games communication director Travis Claytor would not tell the Gray Zone who covered the travel expenses of Team Ukraine and other foreign competitors. He merely stated that the DoD is not responsible for their costs. However, he noted that the relationship with each team is different. Ukraine and Canada are the only foreign teams participating in this year's competition. While promising this reporter a more complete response by email, Claytor has so far failed to deliver. A video on the DoD Warrior Games YouTube channel entitled Family Night at Magic Kingdom shows some members of Team Ukraine enjoying a night out at the world-famous theme park. This year's Warrior Games are taking blah, blah, blah. The competitions include shooting, wheelchair, rugby, cycling, powerlifting, indoor rowing, wheelchair, basketball, field golf, track, swimming, sitting, volleyball, and archery. This is the first year Team Ukraine has participated in the Warrior Games. Its athletes came away with at least 18 gold medals. The organizational team of the Warrior Games in Ukraine includes the Ministry of Veterans Affairs of Ukraine, the Center for Strategic Communications, Stratcom Ukraine, the NGO Invictus Ukraine Games, the Strongman Federation of Ukraine, the Comeback Alive. The Ministry of Veterans Affairs website states, Stratcom Ukraine, like the Ministry of Veterans Affairs, is a governmental body, while the others appear to be Ukrainian NGOs. As Gray Zone reported, the head of Ukraine's Veterans Affairs Agency attended a 2019 neo-Nazi black metal concert featuring several anti-Semitic metal bands and promoted the event on Facebook. According to a deleted article from 2017 on Azov's website, at least 3 members of the notorious ultranationalist fighting force have participated in the Invictus Games. Because Azov identified competitors by their call signs and therefore did not disclose their real names, it's not possible to determine whether or not they competed in the 2022 Warrior Games. So then the article continues to say a bunch of shit about the actual team and a bunch of other people on it, including Yulia Palevska, who the New York Times dubbed a symbol of Ukrainian bravery and self-sacrifice, who gained international recognition this March when she handed off footage she had filmed in Mariupol to a journalist with the Associated Press. The video showed Palevska evacuating Azov soldiers from the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, where she was captured by Russian forces. 3 months later, she was arrested. The Associated Press downplayed her links to the Azov Battalion, writing, Russia has portrayed Tiara as working for the Nationalist Azov Battalion, but the AP found no such evidence, and friends and colleagues said she has no links to Azov. However, Polevska was a member of another neo-Nazi formation similarly incorporated in the Ukrainian military, a fact not mentioned by mainstream media outlets that vaulted her to war hero status this month. So she's a former member of Right Sector. Right Sector is Nazis with a big old red and black Nazi flag, red, black, and white Nazi flag. And it's not a swastika, but that doesn't mean they're not Nazis, you know? And Team Ukraine is known for using the fist across the chest Nazi salute. You know, it's fucking, they're Nazis. And in other photos, a member of the team wearing a Warrior Games t-shirt can be seen holding a Right Sector flag, and 7 veterans associated with the team bear the flag of the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the Schutzstaffel, a World War II era Nazi military formation made up of Ukrainian nationalists. So can we not pretend that this isn't a problem anymore? Can everybody shut the fuck up about how anybody who says anything about this is just Russian? It's not true. It's false. Stop.
Yeah, it does seem a little obvious, I guess. But you know, if it wasn't for, you know, if all I ever listened to was mainstream, you know, media, news, etc., I would have no clue that anything like that was going on. Can I say something about Jon Stewart here? So I gotta say, like back in the day, like I really did enjoy the Daily Show and stuff. I think he's funny. One of my favorite things, it's I don't know who came up with it. They call it the Jon Stewart fallacy, and it's like a logical fallacy of, like, you know, he goes on this great tirade against a government related issue, you know, and you're like, yes, and then in the end, his solution is like, and here's why we need way more government, you know, to fix the problem. And it's like, oh man, so close, you know. But and then there was a thing, what was it, like last year where he went on what, Colbert, and was talking about like, oh, lab whatever, you know, and that kind of, I guess, changed the conversation a little publicly, and that was kind of odd. But so I don't know, it's just strange. It's like, oh, what's the other thing that pissed me off about him? He did the what's it called, where like everybody when they're 18 has to like work for the government, like do 2 years of military. Like he was like pro that, and I was like, dude, that's like literal slavery. Like that's literally,
and specifically fascism.
Yeah. So, oh well.
Yeah, well, so I feel like the media is isolating certain things, and I feel like this is all like a part of a great conspiracy in order to keep the common person away from any conception of the truth. So, like, you know, let's get into a little bit of this digital stuff, because I wanted to talk about how the state is trying to monitor and track people, and you had an article on that, if I understand correctly.
Yes. So I had heard about this briefly, like actually on the local news of all places, but yeah, I found this this article. It's, the thing's called fog program in my notes. Here, let me pull it up here. Let me do some good podcasting. But basically, are you familiar with like the Stingray thing, like the cell phone tracking? It's kind of along that vein, where it's like sort of a legal gray area. They sort of do it without warrants, but because they treat it as a blanket thing, you know, they consider it like a broad thing. It's not specific enough, you know, legally, so they can do it without warrants, but in practicality, it's extremely specific. Okay, fog reveal. That's what they're calling it. It looks like they're mostly using this in California at this point, but
I am not surprised.
Yeah, go figure, right? It's a Virginia-based company, and the dudes who like run it and founded it, which it looks like it's been being used since at least 2018. But these are all like ex-spooks and ex-military officers and stuff like that who are running this company. So, you know, shocker there. But it tracks based on I can actually be technical with the name of the data, but it's a type of ad tracking, and you can turn it off on Android or Apple devices. I mean, as much as, you can believe that. I guess that you can turn it off, but you can turn it off. I didn't realize mine was on. And it's for advertising, right? So it's supposed to be anonymous. It's this long string of numbers and letters. And, just like with like a Bitcoin address. Oh, it's anonymous in that sense. But if you look at the patterns of them enough, you can figure stuff out, right? So, it's might pick up things like the apps you use. If you use McDonald's or Starbucks apps, it can store that data. So where you're at, when you're there, what you're spending. And with enough of this, these things going on, they got where you go, they got where you shop, they got where you sleep. So they can really
Your
get
digital
a good
fingerprint.
picture. Yeah, exactly. So even if your name isn't on it, like, come on, they can figure it out. But I'm pulling up the name of the actual thing. It's an ad ID. So it's called IDFA on Apple and AAID on Android. And on the newer phones, you go to settings, you go to privacy, you go to ads, and you can turn that off. So if you haven't done that, do that. And let me just say, like, I'm usually pretty good with like permissions, and I, disable as much of that stuff as I can. But I found just last week through like Maps or something, a list of every app I've opened, when I opened it, every time I searched something. If it was Presearch, it didn't say what I searched, but if it was Google, it showed what I searched. Just being logged of every single activity I was doing on my phone, just, by Google. And I was like, oh, I was able to turn that off, but I didn't even know it was doing that. So
Sign up for Presearch, y'all. The link is in the description.
Cool. So yeah, but this one, yeah, it looks like the law enforcements are actually directly using this, to track people and monitor them warrantless. What else is new, but this is probably something that more like local law enforcement than you can use. Like we're used to, the big agencies, right? NSA and whatnot. But one thing that a lot of people also don't know is that your local law enforcement can just like ask the NSA for like all the data they collect, and they can just like give it to them without a warrant. So that data, even though it's not your local law enforcement collecting it, they have access to it. And the really scary thing, and this also goes for what we're talking about here, this fog reveal thing, they don't have to disclose that that's where they got the information during your criminal case, like your criminal trial. So they, in the case of the NSA data, when they retrieve that, they can actually do what's called parallel. I think it's called parallel investigation, where they make up a fake investigation as to how they got the data, and it's like legal. They can legally do that. Your defense attorney doesn't know that happened, which means you don't get to actually fairly defend yourself. In this case, with this cell phone tracking ad ID stuff, they don't have to tell your defense that that's how they got the data and the intel and stuff like that to build a case against you. So again, that's not fair. I hate to use that term, not fair, man. But it's not. I mean, I don't care about the Constitution, but that is the rules they're supposed to be playing by, and it's supposed to have like a fair trial, right? So yeah, be careful out there, guys.
Yeah,
that's what I got.
Well, and okay, so along a similar line, and also to sort of bolster the point you were making, if you look at things like Foreign Policy Magazine, they wrote this article sort of saying that information warfare in Russia's war in Ukraine, the role of social media and artificial intelligence in shaping global narratives, you'll basically start to see that, like, and this person I think is even just on the side of Ukraine, right? They're not being impartial as far as I'm concerned. But they're admitting that AI has played a significant and substantial role in stopping things that the state doesn't want people to think, that stopping things that would be considered disinformation because they counter the mainstream narrative. That's a significant problem. And it's not just that. It's This is EFF. Online platforms should stop partnering with government agencies to remove content, because government involved in content moderation raises serious human rights concerns in every context, and these concerns are further troubling when the involvement originates with law enforcement. We recently filed a comment with the Meta Oversight Board urging it to treat this issue seriously, because they fucking said that the FBI told them not to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop story because Russian disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
A common running fucking theme, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they said, yeah, sure, we won't. We'll suppress it. We'll say that certain links won't get the same treatment as other links. So they didn't kill it. They didn't stop it, but they certainly stemmed its reach arbitrarily, and so that the comment to Meta is about how they shouldn't do work with the government, but good luck, because Meta is partially CIA funded.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
the funny
why
thing about the whole, when I was listening to something about this the other day, I'm like, wasn't like Facebook or Meta or whatever, wasn't Zuckerberg, or wasn't he totally a CIA kind of person, or a created person? Wasn't from the get-go the creation of Facebook just a way to help categorize people through likes and stuff?
So basically the original Facebook was a hot or not. It was, so all the progressivism that comes out of it now is sort of wallpaper over the fact that it was a way to rate chicks, and say, hey, you got some nice tits. You don't though. Barbara can go get a thumbs down. And then it turned into, hey, well, what if we just made a social media site for colleges, and hey, suddenly every college wants in on this. Hey, suddenly more than just colleges and also high schools, etc., want in on this. Hey, everybody wants in on this. Let's roll it global, or sorry, let's roll it to US. Hey, everybody wants in on this also now, so let's roll it global. And it sort of built up. But during that build up, it had Peter Thiel money, who's on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, and absolutely not a libertarian, even though he insists he is one. And he was, so Zuckerberg took money from Thiel. He took money from Greylock Partners, and Greylock Partners is directly affiliated, is a defense sort of, if you're an ex-soldier, we'll rehabilitate you and give you access to the economy sort of thing. So they were funding ex-military projects and things that were good for the military industrial complex and things like that. And also the CIA directly, just through In-Q-Tel. And so the CIA was instrumental in the original Facebook thing, and the CIA uses Russia as an excuse for all kinds of things, funding the Mujahideen and Operation Cyclone, and Russia's learning mind control, so now we have to kidnap a bunch of people and learn to control their brains. Russia's building a heart attack gun, so let's build one ourselves. Russia is working with and this wasn't the CIA directly, but it's just a fun thing to bring up. Russia's taking advantage of our lack of knowledge of their territory and country and everything. So let's just hire some Nazis in the Galen org and the Bundeswehr, and let's just put some Nazis in high-ranking NATO. It's almost anyway. So they'll do anything really in order to maintain state capitalism, and that's pretty evil. But people aren't allowed to talk about that, and they're not allowed to talk about the fact that they were the core funding for the original Facebook.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, nothing. I was just saying it's just maybe as the point I'm getting at is that they're just also melted in and interrelated, you know, that the obviously it's a private company, bro, people are like way wrong. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like, duh, of course they're gonna do what the what the the alphabet agencies ask them to do.
You
Why
know,
would, I mean, they're only allowed to operate because they do that stuff.
here's a nice little thing to say to all those, it's a private company. Yeah, it's a private company. They can do what they want if they are one, which these people are very much just state created entities. But like, if they are a private company, yeah, okay, you're a private person. I'm a private person. Yet here you are criticizing me, right? So it's almost like being private isn't a reason that something is not subject to criticism. And it's almost like that's not a trump card, or you wouldn't be here criticizing a private person for their things that they do. Like, it's an immediate trump card for that whole argument, because it's like a reverse ad hominem. It's saying that, because they are a certain type of person, they're automatically right. It's like Fauci saying, I am science. Like, fuck that. No, none of this is true. It wouldn't matter if it was a private company. Private companies can suck too. Anyway.
Not that I was about to get on a Fauci thought, and I decided, nope, that's going to be way off topic. Let's we can stick with where we're going.
Well, actually, though, but write that down, because we could go like really hard in the paint against Fauci next Monday when we record again. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast in order to catch us on a more regular schedule. But yeah, so the article goes on to talk about how like Vietnam has boasted of its increasing effectiveness in getting Facebook posts removed, but has been accused of targeting dissidents in doing so. Similarly, the Israeli cyber unit has boasted of a high compliance rate of up to 90% with its takedown requests across all social media platforms. But these requests unfairly target Palestinian rights activists, news orgs, and civil society. And one such incident prompted the Facebook Oversight Board to recommend that Facebook, quote, formalize a transparent process on how it receives and responds to all government requests for content removal, and ensure that they are included in transparency reporting. Issues with government involvement in content moderation were addressed in the newly revised Santa Clara Principles 2.0, where EFF and other orgs called on social media companies to, quote, recognize the particular risks to users' rights that result from state involvement in content moderation processes. The Santa Clara Principles also affirm that, quote, state actors must not exploit or manipulate companies' content moderation systems to censor dissidents, political opponents, social movements, or any person. Sort of like how when we talked about Saudi Arabia owning a lot of these platforms last week, at least part a huge part of them. It's almost like that might be why Saudi Arabia gets to get away with breaking terms of service all the time, and gets to get away with doing things that other people wouldn't, and also gets to be participating in genocides and still get a platform. Meanwhile, and along with the Azov battalion, might I add, meanwhile, Alex Jones is banned as a dangerous hate figure. Andrew Tate, I hate him. I think he's a piece of shit and a terrible human. But at the same time, the fact that he got banned before Azov Twitter, I don't remember him greasing up bullets with lard to kill Kadyrov orcs. Maybe Muslims shouldn't be targeted for hate by white supremacists and far-right extremists, but they are on the Azov Twitter. Then Twitter says, yeah, this tweet violated our terms of service. It's bad, but we're keeping it up for the historical value, though.
That'd be one heck of a
and they kept the check mark too. So Twitter knows what they're doing.
That'd be one heck of a real bureaucratic technicality for the Muslim God to keep you out of heaven for. Your you know, getting a little bit of bacon grease on you when somebody murders you.
Yeah.
I don't I don't know how effective their strategy is anyhow.
But the point isn't that. The point is to
I
build
know, I'm just
bases.
being silly. I'm sorry.
But no, it's fine. Like, so I feel like if that is the case, if Allah is in like in control here, I feel like he's probably gonna say, you're fine because Americans eat bacon a lot. So if being in contact with any of it at all ever was such a problem, then like being in war with other countries would be a significant issue. So I don't think
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
He's just up there with his checkbook, like, or sorry, checklist, like, going through the list. It's like a TSA screening, but worse.
Ooh, he was fighting for the cause. That's a plus. But that tiny bit of bacon, that
Yeah.
split second before he died. Nope, that's it. Out of here, buddy.
But so like this is a good article, and it's much longer, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it goes over how governments shouldn't do that. So what does the Daily Caller have to report for us? That the World Economic Forum wants to use AI to automatically censor speech on the internet. The WEF proposed a new way of censoring online content that requires a small group of experts to train AI on identifying misinformation and abusive content. The WEF published an article Wednesday outlining a plan to overcome frequent instances of child abuse, extremism, disinfo, hate speech, and fraud online, which the organization said cannot be handled by human trust and safety teams, according to Active Fence Trust and Safety Vice President Inabal Goldberger, who authorized the article. Instead, the WF proposed an AI-driven method of moderating online content where subject matter experts would provide training sets to the AI so it can learn to recognize and flag or restrict content that human moderators would deem dangerous. The system works through, quote, human-curated multi-language off-platform intelligence, input provided from expert sources to create learning sets for the AI machine. Supplementing the smarter automated detection with human expertise to review edge cases and identify false positives and negatives, and then feeding those findings back into training sets will allow us to create AI with human intelligence baked in. So this is obviously evil to anybody with freedom in mind, but they literally did the same thing as the "you will own nothing and be happy" thing, and they made this an opinion article, and then they said at the beginning,
"Readers, please be aware that this article has been shared on websites that routinely misinterpret content and spread misinformation. We ask you to note the following. The content of this article is the opinion of the author, not the World Economic Forum. Please read the piece for yourself. The forum is committed to publishing a wide array of voices, and misinterpreting content only diminishes open conversation."
and they just did that again. And they're talking about Active Fence, which is, supposed to do this sort of thing. It's not opinion, it's just fact. They just want that to be a thing. And what they basically said is, we're going to go to like the dark web and all these, evil little corners of the internet, and we're going to train the AI to recognize all the extremist speech that normally AI isn't trained on, and it will recursively train itself and get better at moderating certain things by reading these sorts of things. So it's going to feed the algorithm certain things, and it says, child abuse material, it says, extremism, it says like all this stuff, but at the same time it could be used for anything. And what it's going to do is it's going to block it before it's posted. That's what it's going to do. It's not even going to allow it to hit social media, because it's going to scan it before the post is posted. And if it's something that the World Economic Forum's favorite app wouldn't like, nope. That is if a social media company chooses to integrate this. So that's evil. That's really, really bad. And it's gonna like impact everything. You know, and you wanted to bring up that Colorado is already centrally managing like things as basic as thermostats. So you can talk about that shortly, but just picture that kind of control. And I talked about this in a video that I'm publishing soon, but just picture this as a top-down control mechanism. It's evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, the whole, and obviously you're very versed on this, but yeah, the whole way that the massive propaganda machine like functions, and whether we look at it like as one big thing or a lot of different factions or whatever, it's just been, and a lot of it's probably I'm paying attention more, but the last couple of years it's just been so crazy and like obvious and sort of eye-opening and just really just something to see, man. I mean, it just seems ballsy, right? Like, because once you realize it exists, it seems so obvious. You're like, why isn't this obvious to everybody? You know, it's the they live glasses, I guess. But then, yeah, when you just, you know, if you just watch regular news for a day or whatever, you go, oh, this is why. Because people who watch this think they're informed. So, you know, yeah, man, it's nuts.
Yeah. And you wanted to bring up that Colorado thing because I think bringing up the fact that it's like arbitrary and specifically anything can be controlled is something that most people won't think is true, but like everything is being centrally monitored by smart devices now, and those are why AI like this can work. Those are why the tracking that you brought up earlier, this anti-fog, is possible.
Yeah, it's, you know, and with like so sorry, I gather myself on this one. Like there's a few items here to this thermostat thing. So one, I like to be in control of my own stuff, you know, so like I'd rather not have a smart what have you anyhow. But like let's say these all were private companies, bro. Like let's say they were, and we lived in, you know, Ancapistan or whatever, right? And the power company was private and this and that, you know, like, man, I'd love the convenience of like an Alexa or something, you know, but I wouldn't even consider that like in our world. But like, let's say we had like a private power company, okay, and we had smart technology and smart, you know, all this stuff, and it was great. But there was some sort of event or something, and the power company had, well, we have a choice between adjusting everybody's thermostat a few degrees or having to shut power down to the children's hospital, you know, like that's like one thing, right? But then of course that private company might get some bad marks, or maybe we might decide we want a new power company or whatever, or maybe it was just an emergency, you know. So okay, like whatever. But they shouldn't be having these issues anyhow. Like, you know, we're having a hot summer here where I live too, and you know what we haven't had? Power issues. Like, you know, so it's not like power companies can't be prepared for this kind of stuff. You know, we have no problem getting power. Maybe I just live in a cool part. You know, honestly, I think the reason we get such good deals on power and everything is because we're in the middle of Mosaic and they have a ton of power plants just to power their mining operations. So it might be that, but at any rate, it can be done, you know. So when you have like governments in charge of these power companies, I don't know that this one that we're talking about, Excel or whatever I think it was called, but you know, there's hardly a power company that isn't at least somehow controlled by the government, right? I mean, it's definitely not a free market in power, and probably not in Colorado. So like yeah, it's just really sucks that they are having so much issues with electricity in so many places. And of course, these are the places that are trying to ban gas powered cars and this and that. And I'm not an anti-electric car guy. There's a time and a place. And right now probably ain't the time for everybody to go electric if they can't even keep the power on. I mean, you're not even allowed to adjust your thermostat, you know?
I am against electric cars for a variety of reasons. Because so first off, every second spent on an electric line is spent losing electricity. Like there's some that leaks.
Voltage loss, yeah, you lose current.
Yeah, so there's that, and then that current comes from somewhere, and it's not 100% sustainable. You know, if your car runs on fossil fuels in the form of coal, don't tell me it's clean.
Mhm.
You know, don't be one of those people that's like, oh, you know, we're just a clean coal person. You know, don't tell me that your natural gas is clean. Don't tell me that, you know, all these things which are traditional power plants, which make up the majority of the US energy mix, are better for the environment because they're going into a strip mined lithium ion battery.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that destroyed the environment somewhere else and deforested and et cetera, et cetera. You know, don't tell me that. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's your like sweet tea recipe. I don't believe you. Um, and so I don't like electric cars to begin with. I don't like the fact that these electric cars, I don't like the fact that these electric cars have such an easy time being centrally controlled. I don't like the idea that somebody could potentially turn it off because it's self-driving and self-stopping.
Mhm.
I don't like the fact that so much of it is controlled and that part of the thing is controlled by a guy who literally like is sticking wires in people's brains. You know, like, let's not. Can we not? Especially since like part of the reason he built Starlink was so that these cars could be self-driving and globally guided by this like this highly centralized internet grid that was built by Elon Musk. This isn't good. None of this is good. It's bad. This isn't good. And
See?
also, like, you add to that all that the fact that, you know, they can just turn off your electricity. Yeah, it's really bad. And like it takes a really long time to charge a car too. Like, so if they turn off your electricity, you might not be able to get to work. Holy shit, is that not a good thing?
Sure. And I agree with all that, first off, before I sound like I'm arguing with you.
Right.
But I know
No,
I agree with
yeah, you weren't arguing with me in the slightest. I don't want to make it. I just get very passionate about this because
I know.
also fuck Elon Musk.
Well, that, and that's why, like, when I was saying, like, oh man, you know, like this or that would be great if we weren't in this paradigm that we're in, you know. And it's like, dude, like if I could have a self-driving car that I could take a nap. Like, I spend so much time in the car, like, dude, that'd be amazing. But of course we don't trust anything like this. And like with the electric cars too, it's like, you know, because of course everything you said is totally legit. It comes with the like asterisks of like when the market says that we are ready for them, right? Which would mean we have some sort of awesome source of power like thorium or you know, better nuclear or something, you know, to power the things. You know, then there's a lot of benefit, you know, versus this or that. And it always comes down to they're not even for everybody. I drive too much for an electric car. My stepdad, he drives like 500 miles a year, and like, you know, something, you know, a small electric car might be a better option for him, you know, like who knows. But yeah, it's them trying to, of course, mandate that everybody drive these electric cars is just beyond a disaster. Just
Like
on the electrical
California, we're
grid
gonna
sense,
ban
you know?
or gas cars by 2035.
Mm-hmm. We, you know, it's funny. There was it's not funny, but they like banned California banned like gas leaf blowers and stuff relatively recently, and it was like, and I think gas generators might have been on the list or something, but it was like 2 weeks later they had huge power outages because of weather, you know. And I'm like, so man, it sure is a shame that these people now their power knocked out because of the weather, because you can't provide them with electricity, aren't allowed to have a generator, you know, to power grandma's dialysis machine or whatever. I don't know if that's a thing, but it sounds scary. So but yeah, man, it's just silly when they do stuff like that. And it's just, from somebody who is tries to be a kind of self-sufficient person, you know, as much as possible, the thought of somebody saying I can't own a gas generator is just, okay, red coat, you know. Like, whatever, dude.
100%.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, I guess the moral of the story is don't trust the media, don't
Mhm.
trust social media because it's being monitored and controlled by the government and soon an AI that's programmed by the government. And don't trust the people who are on the side of all of this, because there's a huge amount of people who've already been propagandized, you know, and they don't care that obvious Nazis are right in front of them. So they clearly won't care when the iron grip of fascism tightens around all of our necks.
Damn, well said. You're so good at talking.
Maybe. Or I'm just like an asshole and I don't care about other people. It could be one of the two, I could just be a grifter or like a literal government agent, working my way in and
Oh,
like
don't
saying
implant
all the
that in
right
my
things.
head. Now I'm not
But
gonna be able to sleep tonight.
But see, now I've implanted it in your head, so now you're gonna have to be suspicious of everyone, including me. See,
Yeah.
it's working already.
Oh man. We got anything else? We got some Nexus stuff to talk about, if nothing else.
Yeah, we need to promote the fundraiser. You can take it away if you want.
Yeah, well, we're getting this documentary together. So I mean, a little bit of the deets better, but we've got a fundraiser going. So if anybody wants to contribute and help make this happen, it'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, so we've been working pretty hard for like well over a year at this point on a documentary. We got Lily Forrester on board. We got a decent like team, but that team needs pay in order to make this happen. And we also need a certain amount in order to make certain other parts of it happen. So like there's a lot that needs sort of a little bit of wheel grease, because the censorship and like the crashes, those hit us pretty hard. We got like, crashed cryptocurrencies, which tanked some of the savings because agorists in the modern age like to use cryptocurrency. So like we lost some of what we used to pay people. And so like there was that, and then there was the loss of reach on places like Facebook, which censored our main page. With no actual reason given and no like ethical reasons, certainly. I wonder why I wouldn't want social media to be in control of any narratives. It's not like my Twitter was suspended for 1.5 years based on automation that they later admitted was a lie. No, I don't have a stake in this at all. I wonder if they cleared all my strikes or just one of them, so I'm like still on my last strike. It's occurred to me multiple times, but either way, the point is that like we need some monies. So if you decide you want to support our content, you want to be in the credits, there's ways to do that. If you decide you want to support our content and don't, there are also ways to do that. There's lots of stuff. There's the fundraiser link will be in the description, and it'll be in the description when we put out all future content as well, because basically we need a certain amount in order to pay the people who've already done work, and we also need enough to finish the job, and anything extra that doesn't end up going to somebody like for this project will just fund more content for the Nexus. If it was like too much that we asked, then it'll be sent to the Nexus. If we get over what we asked, it'll be sent to the Nexus. You will be supporting Agorist content regardless of whether or not the goal gets met, but you'll be supporting more of it the more of it gets donated. So feel free to do that if you want.
Yeah, well said, man. Good deal. Yeah, the documentary's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's all about like the control system that's built around the pandemic. Like it's all about the fact that all of this, AI, contact free, etc. This is all designed to usher us into their new currency and their new system, and it's all evil. But we want to lay it all out from start to finish, show that the pandemic was sort of a beautiful orchestra, to put it in a way that won't get us censored. The whole thing was used at the very least for control, whether or not it was created for that purpose. And that's what we want to talk about.
It's crazy. I was reading, doing work on the doc there, reading articles from 2020, 2021, and just remembering like the different phases of this. I'm like, oh yeah, this happened. Like that's crazy, like the travel bans and the vaccine mandates, or I shouldn't have said that word. And it's just it's just nuts. I mean, it's so easy to forget how much stuff, like, it was every couple days it was a new thing, and it's just so the camps and the whatever, and it's so easy to forget about it. So that's why I'm really excited for this, because we can't let it be forgotten how what they did to, I don't say to us, but to everybody.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I see apocalypse coming, and it sucks to know that it's probably going to come at the behest of the people who called me insane.
Oh, I'm just going to keep tending my garden. That's all I can do.
Yeah, well, okay. Because, that's something else. Dag is going to see about producing some gardening related content. So we should promote that too, if you decide you want to give that a plug right now.
Yeah, I'm still working out the deets and getting it together. It's a busy time of the year around the farm for us. So I really should be doing some recording while I'm doing it. But yeah, I want to get I want to start doing some practical skill stuff. It's kind of what has been my passion here lately, and it's, I feel it's my best area that I can what's the word I'm looking for? Convey value and knowledge, onto people here. So that I kind of want to go with that. I've got a really good opportunity just with what we do around our farmstead, that there's no reason I can't be sharing it with you people and hopefully helping you along your journey. And I want to answer questions. I want to help you guys do what you can to be more self-sufficient or, prepared in the general sense. So yeah, I'm going to get something to y'all. I'll get something to y'all soon. I promise.
And I will be recording on Friday to be released on Sunday. This will be released on Wednesday. We're going to get a regular content production schedule going. We also have a subscribe star. That link will be in the description. And generally speaking, we're going to really fire things up. So if you want to see more of this, consider being, a supporter, either the fundraiser or the subscribe star or something like that. For as low as $5 a month, our audience could really boost our ability to keep providing the same level of content we were before all the crackdowns and crashes happened. So with that in mind, I think I've got a quote for us. If you don't,
yeah, we do quotes at the end. Oh my goodness, how rusty am I?
So the Chinese proverb, it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Fair enough.
Agorist Nexus out.
Peace.
An instrumental part of Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Counter economics. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist.
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 Nexus. Agorist.
Agorist.